Good morning. We are Naick and Kim, and we've been traveling the world for more than 1.5 years now. And the question we get a lot is, how much does it cost to travel full time?
It's actually a question that we've never addressed, at least not in detail, in any of our
Nope.
videos. And people often assume that it's gonna be very, very expensive because people typically think of like the holiday packages that you book at a normal tour operator, and that is how we travel and the way we spend our money as well. But it's actually not the case. And I think maybe this video will surprise you. In one direction or the other, we will see that later on in the video. Also, for those of you who watched the previous video where we showed you around our, let's say, not the quarantine routine, because that's not what we did every day during home quarantine, but like what we do when we relax and chill in home quarantine, you will notice that we are not in quarantine anymore. We are
out and
free.
about. We are free people now, free
Yeah.
to go and roam where we want. So we'll be exploring more of Belgium in the coming videos, and we've got a really exciting plan coming up. We're finishing up the plan. It's
We
complete.
think we'll tell
Next
you.
week there will be, I think, a big announcement.
Yeah, I think there's 4 more videos before we tell you. And those are us exploring Belgium.
Yep.
And then we will let you in on what is going to happen in the future for our channel. But
And
first,
it's really exciting.
It's really exciting. But first, today we are talking money. But before we give you any actual numbers about how much it is exactly that our travels are costing us, because that is what this video is about, we're gonna tell you today how much the exact number is on everything that we spend traveling.
Every penny we spent.
Every
everything.
penny, traveling for a full year last year in 2019, doing all the stuff that you've seen in our videos last year. But before we do that, before we can give you some exact figures, we have to tell you a little bit about our travel style. Maybe if you're new to our channel, you don't really know what our travel style is yet.
And that's important because, I mean, you can say what's the price of a car, but you can buy a Ferrari or you can drive a Lada, an old beat up car. Just to be able to compare, we need to tell you a little bit about our travel style.
I think if you would summarize it in one word, I think the term people usually use to describe our travel style is flash packing. So not backpacking like bare bones travel,
No.
hostel dorms every single day, stuff like that, you know,
Or
eating
sleeping
ramen noodles.
Sleeping in tents and just wild camping and stuff like that. It's not what we do, but still we travel on really budget.
Yeah, that's what they call flash packing.
We usually take double rooms, but the cheapest we can find is usually what we go for, unless it looks really dirty and run down. Otherwise, cheapest room available.
With or without a shared bathroom.
Yeah.
In terms of food, we usually eat street food because we love it, not just to save our money, because we love it, but it's also usually the
We eat
cheapest
at
option available.
Cheap local eateries and all that expensive restaurants or international restaurants. We don't eat like international food or that much, which is usually more expensive, like if you go for pizza or burgers.
Yeah. In terms of transportation, we don't take a lot of flights. We try to keep the flying to a minimum for multiple reasons, not just budget, but also being a little bit more environmentally friendly, which means that we usually take like buses, local transportation. We walk around a lot. We
Buses or
don't take that
trains.
many taxis.
No.
So also there on that front, we're doing the budget option whenever we can. And in terms of entertainment, we don't do a lot of organized tours.
We try to just organize it ourselves, look if we can find a bus somewhere, a train somewhere, and just go there by ourselves. Of course, we have done some tours, like organized treks for multiple days, and sometimes it's just more easy to go on a tour, but most of it we organize ourselves.
Yeah, a nice added benefit is that we can explore at our own pace, not spend lots of money of course, but explore at our own pace and film at our own pace, which is really, really nice as well. So what did we do in 2019? Because that may make it easier for you to figure out for yourself if we do like a small recap of what did our travels look like in 2019, so you can figure out for yourself whether you think the money we spent in the end is a lot or not so much, maybe as you expected.
In total, we traveled almost a full year. We spent a few weeks at home. We traveled for about 318 days, if Kim's calculations are correct.
Of course they are correct. I'm a mathematical wonder.
So we spent about
Marvelous.
6-7 weeks at home. We came back before Christmas, and we came back in May as well for a few weeks. But we spent a few weeks at home, which we didn't count into our travel budget because we weren't paying accommodation. We were staying with friends and family and all that stuff. So what we now included is everything, including the flights, including the actual traveling, all those numbers, including like everything that we spent during that year. It means if we went to a doctor, or if we went to get some shampoo, sunscreen. I mean, every penny that we spent was included in there.
So in 2019, in total, we visited 14 countries.
Wow.
From January to May, we traveled through Latin America. We went to Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, then we flew to Colombia to meet up with a friend, Nathalie. After that, we went back to Belgium for a few weeks, like we said, in May. And then we started an overland journey from Brussels to Beijing, 12,000 kilometers overland.
Quite a trip.
Quite a trip, taking us through Eastern Europe, through Russia, taking the train all the way from Russia, through Mongolia to Beijing in China. And then from China we went to Vietnam, Thailand, and then flying back to Belgium through Norway right before
Yes, we spent
Christmas.
a few days in Norway because it was cheaper to fly to Norway than to fly to Belgium.
Yeah.
So we thought, hey, let's have a quick stop in Norway for a couple of days. So that's included as well. Most of those countries are, I would say, pretty budget friendly, like Vietnam, Thailand, even Russia to an extent, and China. Only really expensive country was Norway, where
you'll see that later on in the
budget. And then I would say Eastern Europe and Russia would be like middle budget somewhere.
Before we tell you the actual number, think about it for a minute. Like 1 year of travel, 318 days for two people, for all the countries
flights,
you went
food,
to,
accommodation, scuba diving,
everything, every single activity. How much do you think that it cost us? Before we tell you, we'll give you a minute to think about it.
Maybe pause the video. So, how much did we end up spending? Mucho dinero?
In total, everything that we did in 2019, all those places we visited, every penny that we spent on food, accommodation, transport, everything down to the sunscreen and the earbuds if you were staying at a dorm, cost us 28,400 cost us 28,400 and a little bit of pocket change euros. That's how much
so for
it cost
two people,
us.
so
for two people,
for one person
a year.
it was 14,000 euros for 1 year, so it's about a bit more than 1,000, probably like 1,300 euros or something per month.
Actually, also the first time that we've properly
we have never calculated
ran the
before.
numbers for ourselves. We
had an idea roughly how much it was, but we didn't know exactly how much it was. It's a bit more than we expected probably, or than we had budgeted for. We had budgeted about 26,000 euros, give or take. I don't remember exactly, but so we're about 2,000 euros over budget, which we'll come back to later with the reasons why. There's some good reasons and some not so good reasons why we went over budget. We'll come to that later. So I think all in all, I mean,
we're pretty happy with the budget.
We're pretty happy with what we spent, and part of it was
beyond our control.
So there was nothing we could do about that. And then there was a little bit overspent. So all in all, I think we did very, very well in keeping to our budget.
And we're also really curious to know what you guys think about that budget. Like when we gave you the minute to think, is it more or is it less than you expected us to have spent in that year? We'd love to know your opinion on that. So leave it down in the comments. We'd love to know.
And we'll break it down a little bit for you, because now it's just a really big number and it seems like it comes out of nowhere. But we actually, and also in our budget, we had like made multiple categories. So it's just come to a comprehensive thing, because I think in the end we ended up spending how much per day? So all in all, it's about 89 euros per day for two people, so 45 euros per person.
Including everything as well as flights
Including
and stuff.
the flights, and without the flights it's about 77 euro for two people. So it's less than 40 euro per person per day if you exclude the flights. All in all, I think that's a really, really good budget.
We're pretty happy with that, And it's, I mean, we know it sounds like a huge amount of money, but that actually makes me think about something that a former colleague once told me when he asked us, like, how much are you planning on spending, if I can ask? I mean, and we don't mind sharing the numbers. When I told him we plan to spend around 26,000, 27,000 euros for two people for a year, he was like, well, basically it's just like if you wanted to buy a nice car. It's not, I mean, it's similar.
Not even
it's
a
just
really nice car.
not even like the nicest car you could think of, but we just chose to spend a lot of money on travel instead of spending it on stuff.
And buying a car, for example.
Anyway,
back to the spending. What did we spend it on? Because, that's also important to know, of course.
We broke it down into categories. First, we're going to tell you what we spent in each category. Categories being, please correct me if I'm wrong, food and drinks, accommodation, transportation, entertainment, and then other. Obviously, food and drinks includes everything from bottled water we bought, through our street food, through small snacks we bought at
through some fancy dinners as well, because once in a while we treat ourselves to fancy dinners.
It was rare, but it did happen.
So for food and drinks, we spent 9,500 euros, which is about 33% of everything that we spent. We don't really save so much on food, or like try to eat like ramen or noodles every day or
For
stuff
us,
like that.
food is like having the local food and having the food that we want to try is a big part of experiencing the culture. So we don't really cut back on that.
Yeah, so 33% of the total budget is about 30 euros per day for the two of us, which is not excessive. Accommodation is for 4,500 euros, which is about 16%. Transportation, 3,600 euros, which is 13%. Entertainment, also a big category, almost 5,000 euros,
And
17%.
That includes everything in terms of entertainment. Like if we did a guided tour, it's in there. So when we did scuba diving, it's in there. All the special activities. When we went whale watching in Mexico, it's all in there.
All in there. We have the category Other, which is basically
Everything else.
everything else, 7.5%. And flights, which were about 13%, which is actually reasonably low number for the flights, I would say.
Yeah, so in the category Other, just to backtrack for one moment, that includes everything from visas that we had to arrange, through sunscreen, shampoo, if we had to buy a new t-shirt, that's in there, all the shopping that we did. If we had a headache and had to get some medicine at the pharmacist, that's in there as well. Laundry is in there, all that stuff. So literally everything else that is not one of the other categories is in there. And then for the flights, that mostly covers the international flights. We allocated a separate budget to that as well.
Maybe let's talk a bit on how we built the budget. Maybe that's very interesting to know.
Yeah, before we go on to tell you a little bit more about the budget per country, like not in detail, but there are vast differences there, and that's interesting to explain as well. How did we come to this budget? I mean, did we just wake up one day and be like, let's spend 27k on travel?
Yeah.
That sounds like a
So what we did actually, we made multiple budget, because it's not so easy to budget for a whole year for travel and then include also some special activities like scuba diving, which is inherently quite expensive.
Into just like a daily number.
Into a daily number. So what we did is we broke it down. So we had a one budget for flights. I don't know the exact amount, but it
We'll
was
put them
about
on the screen
2,500 euros roughly, or 3,000 that we had budgeted for that. And then we had 60 euros per day to spend on, let's say,
daily stuff,
which included food, all the other category, our accommodation, and let's say the normal activities that we did, like if we went to a museum or
so that is 60 for the two of us. That is like our standard daily budget that we had on normal days when we didn't do lots of special stuff.
And then we had a separate budget, which was our activities budget, which
we
was
call it the adventure budget. It was our favorite budget.
It was about 3,000 euros for the two of us for the whole year, and that we included our, let's say, special activities that were more expensive. Or if we went scuba diving, which is just quite expensive. We took this Trans-Siberian Express, which was also, I mean, more expensive than usual transportation, so we took that out of that budget. We did a multi-day trek, which was also quite expensive, and we took that out of that budget. So it's like the special things budget, and I think that really helps, because then on the day-to-day basis you spend a bit less. It's a 60 euros per day, but then you also have the special budget, which you then can spend on more expensive activities, and you don't have to level it out all the time.
Otherwise, if you just say like, oh, we'll take the total number and divide that through the number of days we plan to be gone for, 80 euros for two people per day instead of 60, you're going to tend to spend close to 80 per day every day. You're going to spend more on normal days, and then on days when you do extra stuff, you're going to all in all go above budget.
So I think that's a really good way to set up a budget, because we really wanted to do mainly scuba diving. I think
it was very important to us.
A lot of the money went to actually.
We went scuba diving in Mexico, in Utila, so Honduras. We went in Thailand, so a lot of that came out of that budget.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah. How much did we budget before we left? Like, you know, the flights, the adventure stuff, and then the normal budget. I think we were at 26,000, just about.
Yep. We have an overspend of about 2,000, maybe 2,200 euros.
A part of it comes from the fact that last year in May we had to take emergency flights back home because of a family emergency that we had.
My grandmother passed away, and then it was sudden. Well, not she was sick for a long time, but she died very sudden, and then within 24 hours notice we had to take a flight back home all the way from Colombia with a lot of transfer stops, paying a lot of baggage fees as well. So that came out about 1,000 euro more expensive
than we normally would have paid.
We had budgeted for. If I remember correctly, we paid almost 2,000 euros for those flights, just one way for the two of us. So that put a really big dent in our budget. So yeah, those are the things that are kind of unexpected and we couldn't do anything about, and I didn't want to miss being with my family in these times, so we just took the flight back and swallowed the loss.
And then there was the other bit of the overrun, about a good €1,000, I guess that is, which just because we wanted to do some fancier stuff occasionally.
We overspend sometimes, especially the first few weeks in Mexico. It was the start of our trip and we didn't really want to hold back on just having a beer or just eating some additional stuff or going to a party. So I think there we overspend a bit, and then in general we just overspend a bit.
We also don't want to be like, oh, there's this really nice place we want to go for food. We really, really want to, but we're not going to do it because a lot of those places we're only going to be there once.
Yeah, indeed. Like we really love food, and sometimes it's just this special restaurant or one place where you really want to go. And you just go. I mean, in the end, we overspent, let's say, €1,000 that we had control over for a whole year. And I think that's pretty fine. That was worth it. So
I think we were very deliberate in choosing the things we spent that extra money on. It was worth it. It was worth it. There are pretty significant differences to the budget that we ultimately spent in each country that we visited. We'll just put an overview here on the screen of what we spent on average for 2 people a day. We'll see which side it fits on. Without flights, so that is the average that we spend per day for 2 people traveling in those countries.
Including our entertainment budget, right?
Including everything except for flights.
Yeah, so some of the, for example, Mexico.
I have to cheat for a minute because the numbers are
Mexico is a little bit more expensive because we did some more scuba diving there.
So you will see that in Mexico, Colombia, Russia and Norway, we especially spent significantly more than our average and then we budgeted.
Mexico was probably due to more scuba diving and
more indulging ourselves at the beginning of our trip.
And then which would do have?
Colombia.
We were traveling with a friend and we just chose to go out a bit more, spend a bit more time at restaurants, have some nicer rooms and hostels.
And then Russia is almost €90 on average per day. That is because part of the cost of the Trans-Siberian Express that we took, like our journey on the Trans-Siberian Railway, taking the train all the way from Moscow to Beijing, was included in there as well. Moscow and Russia especially was also a bit more expensive.
Kim had her birthday over there and we just went out to a fancy restaurant, had some really good food.
And then the real kicker, fortunately we only spent 2 days there, is Norway. By far the most expensive country that we traveled to last year. Norway is known for being notoriously expensive.
It's one of the cheapest, one of the most expensive countries in the world, together with Switzerland probably. And how much did we spend there?
140 something euros on average for the 2 of us per day. And we stayed in the cheapest apartment we could find was still really, really nice, but it was quite expensive. And for example,
taking transportation was expensive. We had some food for 2 people, just like a normal dish with 1 beer each. And how much did we pay?
60-70 euros for like a basic. And we looked for the cheapest restaurant that we could find, like the most budget friendly that we could find. So as you're gonna see, if you're gonna try to make a budget like this yourself, if you want to do a longer trip, maybe it's good to research in advance which countries are going to be more expensive and which are not.
Take that into account for your budget. Well, we mostly took roughly the same budget for each country and maybe adjusted our lifestyle a little bit. Like for example,
Eastern Europe.
Guatemala is pretty cheap and I don't think we overspent that much there. But yeah, we could have done it on cheaper probably in Guatemala, but then since we had some budget, we sometimes chose to go for a beer, sometimes more or something like that. Or for example, Berlin, which is in Germany, which is the normal European prices. It's a bit more expensive already, and we just chose to go to a shop and buy some bread and some cheese or something. So we kind of balanced it out also a bit with our lifestyle actually.
So we in Berlin and Eastern Europe, we really didn't spend much money outside of what we did in our videos, and even then we try to be very budget conscious. Plus we slept in dorms all the time, so you may be surprised to see that Eastern Europe is actually one of the regions where we had the lower budget, because that's because we adjusted our lifestyle, not because it's that cheap.
No, indeed. So are we rich? Are we trust fund kids?
Where does this money come from?
Do our parents give us all the money?
Did we get all the money? Did we win the lottery? It's not that big of an amount. But still, no, we did not get the money from anywhere. It is hard-earned money that we made working at our corporate jobs for think 6 or 7 years or something like
yeah,
that.
we spent 6-7 years working our corporate jobs, and basically we chose to not spend a lot of money on stuff to buy. We didn't get a second car. We just didn't buy a lot of clothes anymore in the last 2 years.
Naick had a company car.
had a
He brought
company
me to
car.
work and picked me up
Yeah.
every day, even though
So
I
we-
made more than enough to
So
get
we
my own car.
carpooled, and we just made the choices to save up. And of course, I mean, we're in a very fortunate position to have been in very high earning jobs. Well,
Yeah.
so I mean, we know it's not easy for everybody to do the same, but still, we really made the choice to save up for that.
And a few words of encouragement in case you're not in a high earning job and you're like, why can't I make that kind of money? Why can't I make a lot of money and have it easy to save as well and do a trip like that someday? You still can. We're not going to go into that here in detail because there are a bunch of resources out there on how to save for long-term travel. But even if you don't make a lot of money and you make small adjustments to your lifestyle, like for example, every time you go to Starbucks, maybe you go a few times a week, it costs you 5 or 6 euros to get your cappuccino at Starbucks. Don't go to Starbucks, instead make your own coffee.
Or
You'll
instead of
save.
going out for dinner a lot of times with your friends, just invite them over at your place. It's a fraction of the cost. And there's a bunch of things you can do, which we're not going into right now.
But
And
it's still possible.
And we
for
understand it's not possible for everybody to do it. But I mean, just have a look at what you're spending money on and try to come up with a plan. It's not like we saved up this money in 1 year. We took 3-4 years to save up. So I mean, we also
And we needed some buffer as well,
Yeah.
so we needed to save up more.
so
You
we
also need to have a
took
buffer.
quite a lot of years. I'm planning to get to this point.
So that is the final budget, like the actual spend
Yeah.
for 1 year of travel for 2 people.
That was 2019 where we traveled a full year. This year we're actually doing it on less budget.
Yeah.
The plan was to travel on 60 euros per day, including everything, including our flights, including potentially
International flights, visas,
more
everything.
expensive activities and all that, because well, yeah, we just want to do it cheaper. And since we already traveled for 1 year last year, we already did quite a lot of things that we wanted to do which were more expensive, so we just thought, well, let's try to do it cheaper this year.
So we're trying to not live off our savings as much as we did last year, because last year we didn't have basically any income.
No.
Like for those of you who think that we travel from the money that our YouTube channel made us in 2019, you would not get very far.
No, it was about 1,600 euros we made in total over 2019 with
For
YouTube. So
many videos that we made.
it's not a lot of money. It's basically very small. Maybe it's just to cover the overrun almost. So that
It only covers the overrun, yeah. But this year, fortunately, our YouTube channel is a lot further from where it was end of last year.
yeah, so we're making a bit more money now. How much? I don't know exactly. Maybe we can make a video about that one day.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah.
Our goal is to try to break even for our travel costs for the full year by the end of the year,
Yep.
which is ambitious and which will only work if our channel continues to grow pretty well. So
Yep.
if you're new here, please like this video because it helps us, and let us know in the comments what you think as well. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support. We shall see you in the next one. Next one, we're gonna explore our home
Belgium.
city.
Yeah.
Tongeren. No, it's Tongeren eigenlijk. Tongeren is
It's the oldest city in Belgium. It's where we are actually right now.
It's
and
where we grew up.
That's where we're going to be filming tomorrow or the day after. So
See you in the next one.
Bye bye.